Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Garage Biljon. I was hoping that this episode would be me taking this car to the roadworthiness, but unfortunately she has been unreliable. I took her out for a test drive a couple of days ago, basically a final shakedown drive, and she broke down again on me. I thought initially it was the coil, but that doesn't seem to be the problem. So the problem with this car is that when it gets warm, it loses spark. Initially, I thought that when it gets warm, the fuel pump breaks down, but by investigating the wiring diagram told me that because the car is not getting spark, it's not feeding power to the fuel pump relay, and by not getting power to the fuel pump relay, obviously the fuel is not flowing. So I needed to replace a lot of the fuel system that sits down there anyway. So I know that's fresh. I've got a new coil in the front already, but yeah, it needs to be better. So I have a new coil installed on the car. The measurements are good, so it gives it roughly 6 volt when I'm cranking. The car does fire and run really smoothly when it's cold. I will put a video for you to see that. It runs really nicely, it idles very smoothly, the block is completely still, which is the way it should be. I've replaced the distributor cap, I've replaced the rotor, so there's a new coil. Every single earth point on this car has been cleaned up. You can see down here where you have the ignition module, this has all been cleaned up. You can see all these earth points. There's another one there. There are about 20 of them on this car. Every single one has been cleaned. Everyone has been sprayed with contact spray. So I know that the wires are good. So the last thing I can imagine that this could be is inside this distributor. This is an 8194, so it's got electronic ignition. Inside this distributor, there's a Hall effect sender. And I think this Hall effect sender is no longer working correctly. So what I'm going to be doing today is I'm going to be taking out this distributor, and I have managed to source a aftermarket Hall effect sender because Porsche does not sell rebuild kits for these distributors. You have to buy a new one, and a new one is €700, which I'm not going to spend. Now I have a good used distributor lying on the table behind me, but you know, that distributor is 40 years old as well, so I'd rather try and rebuild this one that I know is broken and see if that works. If that works, then I know at least all my electronics are fresh, except obviously for this ignition computer in here, which you cannot buy anymore. So yeah, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn the engine onto top dead center. Once it is at top dead center, then I will take out the distributor, and then I'll know how to put it back in again. So let's get that going. All right, so I'm nearly there on top dead center, and I'll show you how to get there. So it's just a matter of carefully bringing the flywheel. I'll see if I can get to show you the mark down there. Can you see that mark? Right there is a little white mark. It's not really focusing. There you go. So you can see that's almost at top dead center. It needs to be exactly in line with that little piece of casting that's sticking out from the block. So I'll need to turn it a little bit, only a millimeter or so. There we go. All right, so I've got it on top dead center. You can see there's a little white timing mark right there where my finger is, and it's lining up to a casting in the block into a little point. That tells me the block is now at top dead center. I can also have a look on the cam wheel, and you'll see there's a little dot down there, which tells me it's also aligned with this spike. So that tells me it's top dead center. The third check you can do is the flywheel, but the easier one to do is to disconnect the distributor. and follow your lead. So this is your number 1 spark plug line. So you can just follow that along. And it's this one here. So this here, you can see at the top, this is number 1. So if I take the cap off, you can see the rotor is pointing to where number 1 was. Now, what we're going to do is I'm going to take this all apart and I'm going to remove the distributor and leave it this way, and then I can put it back the same way when I have rebuilt the distributor. To remove the distributor, first make sure that you unplug the plug on the side. Now this is only for an electronic ignition. If you have points, it's a different system. I'm not going to go into that because I don't have a card to show you the example. So if you have electronic ignition, there's going to be this green wire. Unplug it from the distributor on the side, and once that's done, you can come down here, loosen this nut and take off the clamp, and then in essence the whole distributor can be pulled out of the car. There we go. Now I always keep my nuts for safekeeping on the tower. Most of them actually fit onto these studs that you have. So now take off the bracket. Then we take off the vacuum line, and in theory the distributor is now free to pull out of its housing. There we go. She's out. So the culprit, I believe, is inside there. This plastic housing that has a Hall effect sender. I think this thing is not working well when the car is getting warm. So yeah, I'm going to rebuild it, and let's hope that solves my problem where the car gets warm, that it dies. Okay, I've just been to the parts store, and luckily I managed to get this pulse sender ordered. They don't have it on stock, but they managed to get it to me within half a day. It's not Bosch, unfortunately. Bosch doesn't seem to make these things anymore, but yeah, I didn't even know this brand, KW. But anyway, I'll show you what it is. Basically, this sits on the inside of that distributor, and it's a very small little coil. Basically looks like this, and what happens is as the rotor in the distributor spins around, it'll give a signal that it sees a magnetized point. So it's the same as any Hall sender. It's just a very old kind of Hall sender that sits in the distributor instead of on the cam or on the flywheel. But hopefully when I put this into the distributor, I'll have solved my hot start problem. So I've got the distributor on my workbench at home. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take this apart. It's got a few steps. It's not complex, and I'll take you through the steps as I go, and I'll pop it into my ultrasonic bath here, which is really filthy, but it doesn't matter. That stuff still cleans really well, and then hopefully I'll have a nice and clean distributor that's ready to accept the new Hall. I'm going to take off the springs. I think these will clean up nicely once I get them in the bath. I need to take off the vacuum, and I also need to take off the circlip that's inside there, and yeah, I'll show you as I go along. Alright, the circlip is off, and I just used a very fine circlip pliers to get it off, and the next thing is getting the ring off, and then we'll pry the rotor off. So there is the culprit. To be fair, I can't really see anything wrong with this coil, but yeah, it has to be this coil because all the symptoms line up with this being faulty. So here you can see the new one looking all fresh and shiny, and there seems to be a covering on the coil, whereas this seems to be a bit more open. All right, so everything is now cleaned up. I just ran a copper brush over all the components that had some oxidation on it. It's been degreased and it's been re-greased where it needs to be. So I've got some PTFE on this surface there, and also on the inside here I've sprayed it with some PTFE. There will be some oil going through that gallery there, so it'll get oiled up by the engine itself. So no need to lubricate that area. So now I have to rebuild it and hopefully finish with a working distributor. So let's go. Okay, she's rebuilt and looking quite fresh, I would say. I checked the vacuum on this. It does work. It's easy for you to check. You just have to suck on this, and if the little lever moves, then you know that it will advance the timing with the vacuum from the engine. So you can see the new hall sender is sitting in there. Everything is assembled. The last thing I need to do is inside there's a little sponge, and you need to oil that with a little bit of oil. All right, so I will leave her with that oil in the little sponge to sit overnight, and tomorrow we'll put this back into the car. All right, I'm back at the car. Now it's a matter of me installing the distributor back in its hole. Now it's fairly straightforward to do. You want to turn the distributor slightly clockwise because as you insert it, it'll actually turn anti-clockwise. And it's a matter of just trying to get it in the position you had it when you took it out. And then you'll see as you slide it in, you see the rotor is turning. For now, I think this looks good. I'm happy with this. All right. Okay, now I'm going to hook up the wires. I'm going to put the dust cap on, tighten up the clamp, all those things. So I've hooked it up. All the wires are back up. The cap's on, the rotor is in, dust cap's in, vacuum is looked up, and it's loosely tightened up. So I'm going to crank her, and let's hope she fires up. All right, let's see if she fires up. Really, really hope so. Almost. I think I need to adjust the timing slightly. All right, I've turned a couple of degrees counterclockwise. Let's see if that makes a difference. Okay, she runs, but she's not great, so let's go adjust it until she's running better. timing light onto the flywheel, and we'll fine tune it from there. Okay, she's running great. This is where I need it to be. I don't think it's visible on the video, but she's perfectly on 20 degrees before top dead center. So result, she's running, but will she run when she's hot? Right, she's really running nicely. So I'm gonna let her idle and for at least another 10 minutes, and then I'll see if she's gonna die on me. I did find another problem though, and that is that there's a little bit of cooling fluid somewhere here that's leaking out, so I need to tighten up a bracket, I think. But at least that is manageable. That was scary, but it's done and she's running. Alright, so this is probably the 5th start I've done this afternoon. She's been warm, she's been cold. She's responding really nicely to the throttle. I think I fixed my problem. So the next job is either down there somewhere, replacing the clutch. So I'll do a whole episode on replacing the clutch. The throwout bearing is not great. I think maybe you can hear the difference. I'm not sure. You can hear that scratching. So the throwout bearing is completely toast on this car. So I've got a clutch kit, so maybe that's the next job I do, or maybe I just take it for roadworthiness and we see if we can get her on the road. But I'm dead happy with how things have turned out. I've never rebuilt a distributor in my life. I did not even know if the parts that I bought were the right parts, because I couldn't really find any reference material, but it worked. So I'll put the parts in the descriptions should you want to fix your hot start problem with no spark. I'm a happy guy. Until next time, yeah, please subscribe, please like, and let's make some more of these videos. Thank you guys, bye.